about a decade or so later, or no, I'm sorry, about 3 or 4 years later, it got to the point where they just had to do an all-out campaign to try and shut Jerusalem down. And that's when Titus came back. But by this time, Josephus is considered a wise man in the Roman world. So, and he's an expert on the land. He know the leaders of the rebellion inside, the whole nine. This man has a front row seat. He is the fly on the wall of the destruction of Jerusalem. He also is an expert in the law. He also is he also is in the house of Levi and spent times with the Essenes.
That's right. So
the Christian communities and the followers of Jesus wouldn't have been any strange thing to him, whether he believed Jesus to be the Messiah or not. Okay?
Okay.
Now, thank you, brother. That's all I wanted as far as Josephus there. So, why am I reading this? Because if you do your research, do you know they have found archaeological sites off of Josephus's writings? That's how accurate his writings was on geographical locations in the land of Israel, period. Do you know he was responsible? Do you know they used Josephus' writing to find Masada?
Wow.
Because they heard about it, but no one had found it. So a millennium and more later, almost 2,000 years later, when the archaeologist about 80 years ago was looking for Masada, and it's buried, they actually used Josephus' geographical latitude, longitude, this far from this place, and Masada is right where he said it was. And they found many other cities the same way. Do your research. Any of y'all watch the History Channel? Watch the Naked Archaeologist when he was trying to see if Josephus was credible, and he was finding out how much stuff historians have found because of Josephus' writings. Right. So all I'm saying is this. Why did I go through that long route? Because if we're going to use this man, if it's hard for anyone watching this to hear what we're about to read, this man is more credible than anybody you know. His pedigree, his literal in his life, what his eyes seen, what his ears heard. He lived in the land. He fought for the land, was in prison, almost died for the land. He come from the pedigree of Levites. You cats out here trying to tell me the Levites is all the cats in the Dominican Republic or Haiti somewhere. Well, I know for sure this dude was a Levite, okay? This man has a pedigree that cannot be denied. So when we read his work, let us respect something that we don't know. Let us respect someone who was much more of an expert and had much more understanding and lived in the land and was of the house of Israel and understood the whole history perfectly as a Pharisee, right, and as a member of the Essene sect and as a member of the Levitical household. Come on, how much? But let us go into it. I don't want to take up too much time because we got a few things to cover. We're going to go here into Book 12 of Josephus' writings, and it's Book 12 entitled From the Death of Alexander the Great to the Death of Judas Maccabeus. Okay, so going from the death of Alexander all the way up into the beginnings of the revolt in the books of the Apocrypha. Apocrypha. That's a whole nother story. You ain't gonna like this one either. And a lot of the strict Hebrew cats love the Apocrypha, don't they?
Yes, sir.
Don't they love the Apocrypha?
Some of you say it's scripture.
Hey, I love it too. We're gonna get some things out of there. Okay, go ahead. Now what we're gonna do is start in chapter 2, verse 1. Chapter 2 and I'm sorry, chapter 2 and verse 11. Verse 11. All right, let me scroll down. Verse 11, which actually would be 1, section 1.
All right. When Alexander reigned 12 years. All right. When Alexander, excuse me, when Alexander had reigned 12 years, and after him Ptolemy Soter 40 years, 40 years. Philadelphus then took the kingdom of Egypt and held it 40 years within one. He procured the law to be interpreted and set free those that were come to Jerusalem into Egypt and were in slavery there, who were 120,000. The occasion was this.
So this is Philadelphus, who also took the Ptolemy name. He became king in Egypt. He's one of the descendants of the generals of Alexander, who actually took over the northern horn in Africa. Do you know the Grecian Empire in Daniel? The leopard had 4 heads because the Grecian Empire was split into 4 parts. Alexander's 4 generals when he died. This is a descendant of one. He comes behind Ptolemy Soter sitting on the throne, okay? So he freed the 120,000 Jewish captives in Alexandria, but it all started because of this. Go ahead.
All right. Now it says, Demetrius Phalereus, who was library keeper to the king, was now endeavoring, if it were possible, to gather together all the books that were in the habitable earth, and buying whatsoever was anywhere valuable or agreeable to the king's inclination, who was very earnestly set upon collecting of books, to which inclination of his Demetrius was zealously subservient.
Okay, so now here we see that this man's whole job was to get the king, basically the king of Alexandria, all the most world-renowned copies of the most world-renowned writings on earth, and he said in the whole habitable earth, right? So this has nothing to do with the law necessarily itself, but the Most High useth all things for His own good, right?
That's right.
This man is on a mission to get all the writings, all the important writings on earth in this library if he can. And the king money is long. Whatever the cost, they're willing to pay whatever price as long as the thing can be proven to be valuable, right?
That's right.
So now, brother, if you would skip down, I want you to, he told Ptolemy that he had all these books, right? But skip down to verse 14 in section 1 and continue. This is what he tells Philadelphia.
All right, but he said, he had been informed that there were many books of laws among the Jews worthy of inquiring after, and worthy of the king's library, but which, being written in characters and in a dialect of their own, will cause no small pains in getting them translated into the Greek tongue. That the characters in which they were written seemed to be like to that which the proper characters of the Syrians, and that its sounds, when pronounced, is like theirs also, and that this sound appears to be peculiar to themselves.
So now he telling the king, like, look, the Jews got some scrolls of law that we need to inquire and see if we could get in here. Great laws. And he said that it shouldn't be too difficult because the writing of their characters. Notice what this is about? The writing. It ain't had nothing to do with the sound of the, with the language necessarily. Like they could just speak fluent Hebrew or anything. But he said one thing they understood was the characters. And in order, if it won't cause no small pain to get this done because we already familiar with the Syrian tongues, and this dialect, the written characters of their language is very similar to the Syrian language. Even in some sounds, he said, even and that its sound when pronounced is like theirs also. So it sound like the Syrian tongue and it looked like the Syrian tongue, so it shouldn't be that difficult to make this happen. Now, this is Josephus writing a history that is known in the land. This man is writing from oral tradition among the Pharisees, the Sadducee sect, which actually are the scribes that wrote and kept this history and everything, and of the priestly household. So I'm going to take his word if I'm supposed to take any guy living in 2000 something. Come on. But let us continue to go. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to go down into, go over to section 4, and we're going to start right there at the top of section 4, which is verse 30.
Now when this had been done after so magnificent a manner, according to the king's inclination, he gave order to Demetrius to give him in writing his sentiments concerning the transadministration is done rashly by these kings. But all things are managed with great circumspection.
So here, I just want you to know, we dealing with kings of the earth. Everybody act like this thing was done in a corner and some little stuff. Like everybody crap on the King James. Maybe I want to crap on the Septuagint because it was a king of the earth who also gave so you could actually call the Septuagint the Ptolemy version if they wanted to, because it was commissioned by the king. King James version don't mean King James sat up, took them old school ink pens, dipped it in the ink. That man, the man was even dead by the time the whole work was finished. but it was still his name was put on it because he was the king to commission it. Don't God rule in the earth by kings?